All right, welcome, reseller fam. Those out there who are, maybe you're an eBay reseller, but maybe you're on another platform or multiple platforms, whatever. I'm mainly talking about eBay here, so I'm not claiming to be the master of eBay, but it's certainly an honor and a privilege to have you here in this video for a minute. A few minutes. You just kind of hearing me ramble. Maybe you're here for just seeing what tips you could possibly pick up this video. Maybe you're thinking, what does this guy even have to say? You just want to see, but appreciate you being here either way. But just talking about a few of the concepts of why things can sit around in your eBay store for a long time, right? There's just general sales concepts that can also go into having a good eBay store that delivers well in terms of sales and profit margin of some kind. So I don't make like a lot of profit on eBay. I don't necessarily do it as any kind of main thing. It's more like a lot of times just to replace stuff. Maybe sell some stuff that I acquire, and I certainly will keep an eye out for more stuff that I could sell on eBay to make some profit, some extra profit, whatever they might, acquire for free, or maybe someone gives me, or I've had for a long time, stuff like that. But a few of the concepts of why things can sit around in your eBay store. So it's good to really think of all these few different things and kind of sew them all together, so you don't really want to like miss all the little things that could potentially help you stack the deck in your favor, right? Because it's hard to like get 100% perfect on a thing like eBay reselling. So what's the wide variety of products, right? And then a wide range of ways that you could operate your eBay store, right? But there's, like I said, a few things, and you want to keep an eye on all the different elements, right? But of course, when you make an eBay listing, that's probably one of the most important elements, right? It's don't get me wrong, you want to acquire inventory and have inventory. That's like probably like the first as a primary element, right? But a critical element to selling faster and maintaining some reasonable profit margin, or selling your items for a decent price, right? There's all the different factors. Maybe you're familiar with some of them, maybe you aren't, maybe you're barely learning eBay and you kind of a little daunted by some factors about it. It's pretty simple, really, just get started. You set up your eBay account, right? And it's going to ask you for some basic verification processes, for tax purposes, etc. It's not really that hard to do. So if you think it's that daunting, you might have to acquire some information or something to provide. But once you have your eBay store set up, now if you're established with eBay, you kind of, already know about, setting up your eBay account, of course. But even maybe you understand the upgrades of having an eBay store, right? And there's different eBay store levels that you can subscribe to on a monthly basis, or I think you might be able to pay for them for the year. I'm not sure about that, but I think the most basic, it's a basic store, right? It's called a basic store. It's the most basic version of an upgraded store, of some kind of stores where you pay a monthly fee, right? And again, you can just sell stuff for free on your eBay, right? And I've certainly done that for a long time. But if you sell a few items, if you sell a good few items regularly, you have a good few items listed, like maybe 100 or 200 or something like that, you're probably going to want to have at least a basic store. Why? Because it's going to provide you with more free listings each month, so that you can more easily unlist and relist items, for example, which you're going to want to do, right? But it's going to give you overall more listings in general, so you can have more items in your store. Because the thing is, they're going to relist each month automatically of many of them, depending on how you set up your store. You're probably going to have them set up for automatic relist many times, right? So you want them to relist every month. And even when you first initially set up the listing, they'll give you some free listings even with the free account, right? But I don't know, like it might be 50 or 250 or something. It depends on what they're doing at the time. It might change sometimes, but overall, whatever amount of free listings they're giving you is, you can make those listings at no charge, right? Of course, but after that, it's typically about 35 cents. It might be give or take. It could change, right? But at the time of this, as far as I know, it's 35 cents insertion fees, right? So it might not seem like a big deal. You might be thinking, well, but what if you have to reinsert that every month for a year or two before it sells, right? So 35 cents times 12 or 10 would be a 350 times another 70 cents, be like $4.20, that essentially you're paying an eBay fees to sell an item. $4.25 might not seem like much, but if the item is only an $8 item, or maybe even less than that, or something like that, maybe it's a power cord, or just something you just wanted to sell, or you've acquired and you want to sell, you want to keep that in mind. It could take a little while to sell. It might take 2, 3, 4, 5 months, right? And then if you unlist it and relist it, and of course that could use up an insertion fee potentially, depending on how many items you have listed or relisting that next month, etc. Right? So you can go back and look at your expenses on eBay and how much fees they're charging you, and see if you're getting insertion fees. Or you at that place where you want to probably get a basic store at least. Maybe you want an upgraded store from that, but if you're just at this range, like I said, probably a basic store is appropriate. It's like $25 a month, give or take, right? But it's worth it because it's, you're not having, unless you're only selling like, 10, 20, 30 items at the most or something like that, you're probably going to want to have that basic store because not only you get more free listings, you might think, hey, I want to sell more items. Now that I think about it, I have more free listings. Maybe I just try selling more items, because like you say, they might have to sit around for a little while. You want to be able to have it do a good amount of relistings each month. You have at least like 500 listings or 250 or 500 listings free, so that each month it is just relisting. I have to relist 100 or 200 items at 35 cents a piece gradually throughout the month. You're not even thinking about it, but 35 cents a piece every month, right? That's $35, right? For 100 items, 200 items, like $70, right? That's coming out in eBay fees. So it's important to keep an eye on that. Like you said, probably want to get a basic store if you're planning on listing any reasonable amount of items. And if you're doing eBay, you might as well list some. I don't really do it that much myself. I list, a few items a week, maybe every few days I might list an item or 5. So it's kind of like a side project, really mainly to replace stuff that I have, and maybe, a little extra profit on items that I don't want or have found or acquired in some ways, right? Thrift store or something like that. I don't really go out of my way to go to thrift stores and yard sales and stuff like that. But you could, right? That's what a lot of people do for sourcing more stuff, right? But the main thing is, how are you going to sell that stuff? Well, you can check the sell-through rates. That's certainly valuable, right? And it's going to take you time to do research on each product. You get better at it, Maybe you don't do it all perfect in the beginning, right? Just make sure you're not spending too much money on inventory. That's the main thing. You want to know that, you're picking up inventory that's going to probably at least make you some level of profit. Otherwise, just don't pick it up, right? Pretty confident about that. Brand names are pretty good to go with, but really the biggest thing is getting good at listing, right? Being good at listing, right? So a lot of people say, oh, well, you go in there and you don't really have to fill out a lot of fields. And yeah, that's true. In many cases, there's a few fields you might not really need to pay attention to. But overall, there are a lot of fields in an eBay listing, especially for all kinds of different products, because the listing fields can be different for different kinds of products, of course. And especially with clothes, for example, it might be a lot of different little details you could fill in. So it's like I say, in the beginning, you might be listing stuff. You're kind of gradually getting better at listing in the beginning, though. You might not know much about fabric type, stuff like that for clothes. You might not know much about electronics, where, the most electronics brands are made and stuff like that. And you start learning, oh, well, I know that this brand is always made in the USA. This brand is typically always made in China. You get better at those things. You don't always... you always go with the labels, and any labels you can find in your product, any history you can find in the product. Use ChatGPT, use Google Shopping, use Amazon, use eBay to find other listings of the exact same product as much as possible, right? So you can see other properties, and same time, maybe double check them somewhere else too. Sometimes people have inaccurate listings. Maybe if it's on like Amazon, or most of the time on eBay, it's probably pretty accurate, but not necessarily always. So you want to kind of maybe double check stuff and kind of have a few things in your browser favorites, right? And a few folders in your favorites area of your browser, so you can like open up maybe a certain folder of 3 or 5 tabs, or of eBay pages, specific eBay pages like unsold, drafts, listing. Now, like you said, you really want to look at these specifics, item specifics. They are important. A lot of people say, oh, well, you don't have to fill in these item specifics. But yeah, there's factors, because people narrow down their search inside of, eBay, but also in Google Shopping, right? Or maybe some other directory that might, even on just people's personal websites, they have like, maybe Google AdWords might be showing some eBay listings or something like that. Maybe someone's looking at a website about, guitars, and it's showing some other guitars from some eBay listings in there or something like that. They might get a little percentage. It's just, I don't know, claim to know every exact element of that. But, the thing is, you can show up in more listings by having more of those specifics, right? Especially when people are narrowing down their listing and they're typing in they want a red shirt with lace, and turtleneck shirt, and all, different little factors, different little accents, different elements. It might be unlikely in many cases, but if you get better at it, you're stacking the deck in your favor with each listing better and better. So like say, in the beginning, you might have a few items, you might have some clothing items you're trying to sell. Maybe you have 10 or 20 items and you're thinking, oh, what the list is, I don't know that much about them. Do your best in the beginning. Try to fill out whatever fields you're confident about. If you're not confident about it, maybe don't fill it out. But also taking good multiple pictures, right? Multiple potential main default pictures too, like at least 2 or 3, because you might want to change the default picture of that listing at some point in the future. You don't have to take more pictures, right? Clean up the item as much as you can reasonably, right? Stuff like that for the pictures. But also, like I said, when you're viewing all those item specifics, you might use ChatGPT to look up that specific model number or that tag number and item, just try to find as much as you can about the titling of that item. It's Adidas, such and such line of, sneaker, RN number such and such that might be on the tags, like I'd say also really looking for all the tags on, especially clothing items. They have multiple tags, 2, 3 tags, sometimes maybe more, but you want to be able to take pictures of all those tags and put them in there too. Some things that there's vague in the beginning, we say, hey, we'll see tags or see images for more, right? And so that people can see more details about the items. You want to really be very descriptive of that item in the search, and so that way people, and also eBay's probably going to be showing that search in more places, and it's going to be picked up on other directories like Google Shopping more if it's an accurate listing. So in the beginning, you're listing a few items, you're not very good at it, right? You're making some errors probably here and there, right? You're failing to put in more item specifics that would be helpful. Like I said, do what you can at first. List a few items, get them up there. Maybe some of them will sell. Some people might find some of those items, but at the same time, every now and then you want to go back and sort all your listings according to most viewed to least viewed, right? And then when you go to least viewed, and the last page of, maybe you have multiple pages of listings. If you have a good few, like 100 or 200, 300, you're probably going to have more than one page of listings, depending how many you're showing in your managed listings or active listings area, right? So, take them from most viewed to least viewed, and then go to that end of that list, and the least viewed ones that have been on there oftentimes the longest. But, main thing is they're least viewed. Now, if there's something you just recently listed, you might be leaving it up there for a while. You can probably see. That's only if you have a shorter amount of things. But if you have a good amount of items, 100, 200, 500 or more, then, you want to go to those least viewed ones and see if you can unlist them, right? And then relist them, sell similar. This is if you have an eBay store. If you have just a free eBay account, you might want to be cautious about unlisting and relisting, because it's going to probably give you an extra fee, right? So that's the reason why you want to have probably at least a basic store if you have 100 items or more, because you might be doing some unlisting and relisting. Things are going to be renewed each month, stuff like that. You're going to save money on eBay insertion fees, right? And also keeping an eye out for special upgrades to your listing that could be costing you extra insertion fees that you might not need. Maybe they're good in some situations, but mainly this is a big deal. And part of your descriptive element of your listing is to make sure that your product, your item, is in the most accurate, best main category that it could be in. Right, then usually it's accurate in picking it up if you put a good title to, something like that. But the eBay might say, oh, okay, it was automatically detecting the category, but maybe it doesn't, or maybe you didn't really, describe the item right when you looked it up, something like that. Maybe you went to another listing and you decided to sell similar, right? Something like that. You want to make sure all the stuff that is similar in that listing is all accurate according to that product. It might not all be accurate, right? Or maybe your product is slightly different. It's not the same exact model, or something about it is a little bit different. So you want to be descriptive of your item as much as possible. So like I said, when you're getting your item to list it, that's really keeping an eye on all the tags, taking pictures of all the tags, anything that's sort of descriptive on there, any numbers, anything at all, keeping an eye on it, and of course where it's made, maybe the fabric types and material of the product, whatever it is, as much as you can, taking note of that so you can fill as much of that as quickly the first time you're listing it. Same time, like I said, going back to those ones that aren't getting as much views later on, and unlisting maybe 5 or 10 of them, or 2, 3, 4, whatever, however many, a couple few at a time. Maybe you want to do a good amount of them at a time. Those are probably the ones that have the least item specifics in them, or they have the most errors, or some reason that they're not getting any views, right? Maybe Now, maybe it's a low desirable item. That's certainly in many cases possible, yes. That's the reason why you really want to do this, so that you can make that item be found by that one buyer that is looking for that item, right? And is willing to pay the price that you're asking, right? Just, like you say, there's another thing too, is to be wary about lowering your prices. Now, I'm not saying to charge overpriced for your product. Look at the accurate pricing of it, what it's sold for on eBay. Like I said, have a folder of a few pages. ChatGPT can be good for, say, hey, give me all the eBay listing specifics for this specific product, this model number, etc. And maybe it'll give you some additional details you could put in your listing, right? Keywords, right, that are adding to your listing. Like I said, with clothes and other items, it might ask for some things that you might not think, what does this mean? Like theme, right? With your clothes, with theme, and it gives you ideas on there that it's pretty basic. What kind of occasion would that clothing item typically be worn for, or what kind of scenario? Is it city style? Is it country style? Is it for work? Is it for casual? Is some stuff that you might put into the theme of it? What kind of event would you wear it at? Stuff like that, right? Or would you use this item at, right? Or what is the style of this guitar? Stuff like that might be put into the theme, right? Character, maybe there is any special character associated with that, some kind of copyrighted character, Mickey Mouse, or maybe a company or something, a brand name or something like that might be, but also a mascot, right? A mascot could oftentimes be, a logo of some sort, or some, so it's just the idea, right? So that might be something you would put into character, right? And people are searching, hey, I want a Mickey Mouse shirt, I want a shirt with such and such. It seems like it's silly, right? Maybe nobody might think, oh, what is a big deal? Or, features, right, of your item, right? Whatever features, and maybe use ChatGPT. What would be features for an eBay listing for this specific item? And it'll give you more words that you can add into features. Maybe you get 3, 5, 10 feature keyword items that would be potentially searched. Someone's looking for, a gaming mouse, or whatever other factors that might be associated with that product, right? So it's just really good to get as much of these descriptive elements into our listing, accurate elements, so that we can get more visibility, overall more visibility. And doing that, unlisting and relisting, not just unlisting and relisting, really, unlisting and selling similar, right? That is going to create a new listing and probably a new ID. It's going to basically refresh the listing totally. So those are the listings that are the oldest in your listings, right? The ones that are not just the oldest, but really the least views. Combination of the least views and probably the oldest that have the least views, right? So go in there and unlist, and then sell go back. You have it in the unsold area, right? You unlisted it, right? Or ended the listing of that item that's been around for a while with no views, right? Then you go into your unsold area. Maybe have them open in multiple tabs so you can easily just go back and forth and refresh and whatever, but you're going to go into the unsold area and then sell similar, right? And then this time you're going to maybe change around the default image. Maybe you always take a good amount of pictures of every item, and like, I know it seems silly, but especially with an item, you think, oh, how many pictures can I take of this item? But still, take multiple pictures, take good pictures, try to have good lighting and all that, so that people will more likely to click on, your item. They see the image, crop it down to as much so it's taken up as much of the image space as much as possible, your item, right? Make sure all components of the item are in some of the images, at least, depending on what your image, maybe sometimes you have to show it next to this remote control, stuff like that. Maybe you're showing it in the main image, and maybe you're not for some reason. It's like a TV, and maybe you just want to show it on the TV, but you're also showing in another image that has remote control and whatever else, right? So this just depends on what you're selling, right? But this is just ideas. Remember to make sure you have all components in those pictures as much as possible, right? But these are the reason why people will have their item sitting around for a long time, is because they don't even realize that their item is not listed well, right? They didn't go back and relist it every now and then to relist a good 5 or 10 or however many items it's appropriate for your store that have been sitting around for a while. It's tagging, right? Changing the picture around before you relist, or sell similar, I should say. You could relist and you could revise a current listing. That's not like that's the bad idea. But with this is specifically going back to your oldest and least viewed listings, right? And unlisting them and then sell similar from the unsold area, right? And once you listed the item, it'll be active. And make sure it's active before you delete it from the unsold area, right? So that way you don't completely delete the listing and have to redo it again by accident or something like that. But the main thing is that when it is reactive, then you can, once you can see it's definitely active and live again, then the relisting of it, then go back to unsold and delete them from there. But, like I said, really before you sell similar to relist it again, you're changing the picture, maybe the default picture if possible. And maybe not. Maybe that's just one element you could change potentially to maybe something about it wasn't working. Double check your title, right? Now, for me, I found it, I don't want to say it's a strict rule. I don't claim it is. It's not like it's happened every single time, but you want to obviously have the brand name of an item as much as possible, right? Depends on what your items. Maybe you have an item that's not even have a brand name as a sculptor or something, but it's probably done by somebody. It's probably got some titling to it, right? Some kind of branding or something like that, right? Identification of that item usually, right? Basically, like 99% of the time, some way to identify that item, right? The brand is my opinion, it seems to be one of the most powerful, I don't want to say powerful, but it seems that the items that I sell, that I actually sell, they all have the brand name as the first part of the title. I don't claim to know that is definitely the best way to do it. It's just my experience, right? So let me know if you drop me a line. What's your experience? Maybe you have some tips that I'm sure that other eBayers here that are listening may be thinking, hey, I know a lot more about this. Give me your feedback. Certainly, if anything is inaccurate in your experience, this is just my experience and what I think can help you get more of your items sold. I've sold, maybe at least a couple few hundred items, not like a ton, but, all typically at good prices, right? And, why? Because I clean them up good, I think. I take good pictures, a good amount of pictures, and complete descriptions as much as possible. But it's not like it was always like that, and it's not like it's great, like I'm perfect at it now or anything. But, like I said, when you're doing that relisting, you're selling similar of that item, you're changing the picture around, you're double checking the title, you're making sure it's in a good format, right? And maybe checking your sold items. What's some common threads with your sold items? Is there any common threads? I don't know if the background is super important in terms of maybe the color of it. Yeah, they talk about white maybe being, the most common or best, most acceptable background. But I don't know if that's a strict rule. I think if you go to even Google Shopping, you will find some items that are not necessarily just an all-white background. But, it might be probably best in most cases to have at least the default that you could put up there that is a white background. Usually taking all pictures out of a white background, sure. But at the same time, maybe not always a strict rule. Some items might be hard to do that with. Maybe they're a little bigger and you don't have that kind of background for it. Make good pictures, right? Do whatever you can. But in that listing, whenever you're reselling, you're checking the title well. You're checking the category. You're double checking the category, right? Making sure it's in the most appropriate category. And then, you're going in there and checking those item specifics again and seeing the fields you didn't enter the first time, right? Like maybe using some more tool like ChatGPT or finding some other listings, looking at Amazon, hey, is this product sold on Amazon? And going and see what, maybe they have the UPC number there. Maybe they have, the weight or dimensions. You could throw that in there and maybe think about it. Does this weight and dimensions sound really accurate? Sometimes it's not always accurate, from another list, especially on, eBay's maybe a little more forgiving. Amazon, I don't know. Maybe it's a little more strict about it. In my experience, it seemed like it's pretty accurate most of the time, but they might not be accurate about the exact dimension. They might be just talking about the package and not the actual item itself. Or when the item is assembled, it might be totally different dimensions than it is in the box. So those are factors to consider, right? But you might try to add as much of those extra things. I don't usually necessarily put the actual weight of an item in the listing. Sometimes it's asking for that, and if you have that, that's where you want to have a scale handy, a couple, maybe like a regular weight scale you could stand on and measure the weight of an item if it's a bigger item especially. But maybe you have a smaller scale that can weigh up to 15 or 30 pounds, right? You can just have it on your table and you can put an item on there real quick and just see what the weight of that item is. It's good to know. You might put it in the SKU of your listing. Now, this is something to keep in mind too. If you're the eBay lister, you might be aware, but maybe you're not. Is that I don't think, in my experience, it doesn't give you the option to necessarily add a SKU field that you could add extra keywords to or talk about where the inventory is. You might not necessarily be able to add that when you're listing on the computer, right? On the computer, it might have it, but it might not. But in my experience on the mobile app, the eBay mobile app, right? It always has the option to add the SKU field. So this is a big important thing in my opinion is, do a little editing, maybe do most of your editing, maybe you feel like the eBay listing is done, but maybe you want to still save it as a draft and then go and open it up on the app on the phone real quick. Open up the drafts and find that draft you just saved on the computer. Maybe there's some other factors there that it's got that you can tweak it, and then maybe even want to save it again, the draft, and then refresh it on your computer screen, drafts, and then do a couple of other things to it based on that, right? And like I said, eBay has its AI descriptions, right? Now, when you do that AI description, if you don't have many of those fields filled out, it's going to do what it can with that, right? It might be pretty generic, but if you want your eBay listing to be keyword rich, right? Not only do you fill in as many of these items specific, you learn about them, and then you maybe listing clothes a bit regularly, and or items that are just by curious. They have a lot of factors, type of fabric, stuff like that. Right? You're learning more and more about little factors of that. You're not expecting to learn it all at once. You're listing stuff the best you can until you learn more of those extra little things that you could add in on item specifics, right? You're adding item specifics that could help when people are searching for specific items, if that makes sense, right? They're looking for more specific items. I want, stone-washed jeans with holes in them or something, whatever they're looking for, the specific types of items. You can reach those few extra searches. It will help you sell more of your items quicker, right? Sell more of them quicker at a higher dollar because they're finding the actual buyer that really wants them more often, even, right? More specific buyers more often. You just put a general thing, a black shirt, right? A lot of people might type in black shirt. A lot of people that aren't necessarily looking for that specific type of black shirt because maybe there's something that's unique about it, right? That, you want to appeal to those unique elements as much as you can. That's helping the buyer to find their specific items better, right? You're being more thorough with your listing. So at first it seems daunting. I have to be thorough with all this stuff, but you get better at it. You start stacking the deck. If you get a little quicker with your processes, I'm going to clean weigh and measure my item. I'm going to check real quick. Maybe the first thing you do before you even start really writing much of your listing is check to see what the UPC number might be for the item or the book. Maybe it has an ISBN number on the back of the book that's asking for ISBN number. You can just type in that UPC or ISBN number, and oftentimes it might find all the information for that item and fill them in because there's a generic standard, like books, for example, ISBN numbers, or some other types of media might have an ISBN number, but mainly books. But also UPC numbers, right? You find them, like you say, go to Amazon, maybe you find that exact product, and maybe they have it for sale there, and you can see a UPC. Maybe you use ChatGPT to find a UPC, and maybe it gives you one. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's inaccurate, and be a little cautious. You want to, if you don't know the information, you don't really want to put, if you're not pretty confident that your information is accurate, you probably just don't want to do it, right? So if, put does not apply if you're not pretty confident that you're finding the right information for your product, right? So you want it to be accurate as much as possible. You want your descriptions to be good so people don't return them, right? People can, like I say, a good amount of pictures, especially with clothes. There's a good few pictures you want to take into account. You're going to take like up to 20 pictures or more on basically almost any clothing item. Because you want the people to really say, okay, I would definitely want this item. I can see it, what it is. No question about what it is. They're showing me a good amount of pictures. Like I said, 2 to 3, maybe even 4 potential main pictures of a lot of items, right? Like I said, something simple you're selling, like a product that's just in a package and you're selling some package of batteries. Still, take multiple pictures because you might take diagonal pictures that are like, it looks like, it's at a design angle, kind of like I take this mouse, I can take a picture of it front like that, I can take it to like the side, I can take it a straight top, but I could also take a picture kind of like that, right? Or also another one like that, a couple like that right there to add into your pictures, right? So that way you can, maybe that wants to be your main picture, and you thought of it, that's just an idea, right? So giving yourself more pictures, potential main pictures, upgrading this item specifics, checking for your accuracy, using ChatGPT to help you fill in some extra fields potentially, maybe even looking up the specific field. Hey, what are the features field? What would I put in the features field for this product? What would be the best things? And that'll give you a few things that you could type in there and add in there, and that might be associated with, ask yourself, is it making sense? Always is, ChatGPT's not perfect, and you can also use circle to search on your phone, right? If you have a smartphone that has like circle to search, which a lot of them do nowadays, right? So use circle to search. Thanks for listening, by the way. But use circle to search sometimes to take a photo or just do the circle to search with, or Google Lens, I think is an app that I'm not sure how that works or if they have that same exact app now, but you can take a picture of the item and circle it and it'll try to find that exact item. Maybe it finds the exact item, maybe it just finds other things that look similar. It depends on what the item is. Some items are easy to identify, the exact item, some items aren't, right? Taking a picture of a dinner glass, it might be harder for it to identify exactly what brand of dinner glass that is. And if you're taking care of a Nike jacket, that's a common, thing, it might more likely identify it, right? Taking a picture of a video game, Call of Duty, it's probably, oh, okay, well, that's what we know what that is, right? So, just depends on what the product is. But like I said, fill in as many item specifics as you can, and using Chat GPT and other, also Gemini, AI, any AI you can. But I think Chat GPT is pretty adequate if you have it, you use it. But if you're not using AI, like I said, eBay has its own AI description. So the more of those item descriptions you have filled out, the more keyword rich and accurate it's going to do the AI description. So once you don't do the AI description until after you've filled out as much of the listing as you can in terms of item descriptions and title and everything else, as much you can, then do your AI description on, right? Then maybe do the AI description on the eBay listing, right? Then it'll fill it in much more accurate with much more, so that's going to help you get more visibility, right? So that's just my thoughts on this. It's just a few minutes with you. I appreciate you listening in to maybe if something helps you, appreciate, maybe adding your input. Maybe you correct me on something, right? Because I'm not claiming to know everything about eBay. I just know that this, in my opinion, has helped me to sell items at, reasonable prices, higher price, not necessarily like, gouge prices per se, but, you'll sell your used items for a good price. Like I said, don't be tempted to lower your prices too much, right? Maybe especially if you're listing, you're selling similar, unlisted some items, and then you're selling similar. They've been sitting around for a while. Maybe they didn't sell because you're thinking, oh, maybe my price was a little too high or something like that. Maybe it was. Maybe you want to change the price a little bit. You want to tweak it. Maybe you want to even raise it. Maybe for some reason. Maybe you went a little low and maybe people were doubting and, hey, what's wrong with this item? Or, maybe you could just bottom, like I had an item recently that, wasn't selling for a good year for a while. And then, they maybe changed the price. I didn't really unlist and relist. I maybe did that once, but then one time I just revised it or maybe relisted it and I added another 50 or $100 to it, right? And then like the next couple of days it sold. So don't underestimate your listing. If you're thinking that you just need to lower the price, really, a lot of times it's really about making a better listing, right? It's making a better listing. And also that way your items sell sooner. You really never know what could sell, right? Even if you think, oh, this has a low sell-through rate. I'm not saying to acquire that type of inventory intentionally, but if you have stuff you're trying to sell and you're thinking, oh, I want to get rid of this and it doesn't have necessarily a high sell-through rate, or whatever, depending on what it is, you probably in many cases want to go with the market. If that shirt sells for typically $15, you're probably going to go in that range, right? Unless you're, trying to somehow wait around longer to make an extra few bucks on some small item, you have to choose your battles wisely on eBay. In the beginning, you might be just listing everything you have that you want to sell, right? Maybe you gradually think, hey, I want to sell this. Oh, you know what? I can sell this too. I can sell that. Wait a minute, I can sell all these things I have in the garage. Well, that's right. Let me see. Let me just list them anyway. Maybe someone buys it. Maybe they don't. If they don't, maybe I'll decide to keep it. It's helping you get more visibility on your eBay store. It's also giving eBay the signal that you're listing a bit of stuff, right? Same time, eBay is probably going to take into account, hey, does this person have all their stuff overpriced? Or are their listings pretty accurate? Do they have any returns, stuff like that, right? You want to avoid those red flags that can make eBay say, hey, it's not a good seller, right? Which will probably give you lower visibility, right? You want to get maximum visibility. As far as free shipping, I personally recommend really starting out mainly and mostly doing calculated shipping, right? So that the eBayer is paying, the buyer is paying for their shipping, right? But also that's what the benefits having a scale and taking tape measure written, especially next to your item. Most items, basically almost any item, when you're taking your pictures, take a few pictures with some tape measuring, especially with clothing items. And certainly it's a few key measurements that first you might think, oh, that's not that important, or that's too much work. But if you get better and better at it, wait a minute, if I just take my tape measure and also take these extra pictures, or if I just take a hanger and also take a picture of this clothing item hanging up, but also laying down on maybe a white backing board like what I have here, for example. Maybe you do a combination or something like that. So I think, in my opinion, a good idea. But, a few different ways to show the item so people are really confident when they buy it, but also more likely to buy it sooner for a higher dollar, right? And they're confident about their purchase, right? So this is my concept here about reselling. Like you say, let me know your tips, or maybe you're maybe doing a bit more than a few hundred items. Maybe you're just barely starting out. What maybe is holding you back from taking more steps? What maybe helped you to take a bigger step? I think people acquire inventory in a lot of different ways. You could be a wholesaler of something. You could be a retailer. You could be, just a small type, person, sales business person. Maybe you have like a thrift store or something like that. Maybe you're, like me, you're just kind of selling some old stuff you have and then adding additional stuff into that. It's just part of your extra revenue streams. Helps you cover expenses, etc. But, if you want to make eBay big, I think you're going to find you have to really probably have a lot of inventory, right? What kind of inventory you want to keep around? Probably the smaller inventory is like, you're willing to, if it's valuable, maybe wait a little longer on it, right? Either way, go back and unlist and then resell similar regularly, right? So you can, and then it's also giving eBay a little more action, and I just did a little bit tonight, and as soon as I did it, all of a sudden a sale came in. It was just a small sale, but it was just kind of like, oh, okay, well, and it wasn't necessarily from anything I was relisting per se, but just doing that little bit of activity each day for maybe 15 minutes, do a few of them at a time, old listings of yours that you've been in your store, and then fixing them up again, retweaking the default image. But ideally, like I said, when you're first listing items and you're first taking pictures of items, doing that extra steps, so that way you don't have to say, hey, later on, hey, wait a minute, I didn't do this and that, I should have, now I have to pull the item out again and and remeasure it and do whatever, take new pictures and all this and that, right? You want to do as many of those things right the first time as possible to save you time, right? To save you time and save you money. So anyway, hey, Micah here, rambling for a few minutes. If you appreciate listening to this channel, I have some other videos, and maybe it'll recommend a video here at the end of this video here. I certainly encourage listening in to maybe some other stuff. Appreciate you listening in, and any feedback or reactions, and of course any positive comments are welcome. But whatever. Appreciate you listening in. So maybe you got something out of this video. Let me know. Maybe if there's anything that you did pick up that you didn't know before. Appreciate your comments, and till next time, check out my other videos. All right, have a great one. Bye-bye.